What's up? Welcome to a new video. My name is Jess and today I'm going to be reviewing the Too Faced Multi-Use Sculpting Concealer. I've been looking for the perfect concealer for a long time. I've tried so many different brands. I've tried Charlotte Tilbury, Dior, I've tried the NARS concealer that everyone loves, I've tried YSL, 2 different concealers from Maybelline. I've tried drugstore, high-end, luxury, I've tried all different kinds of concealers. What I'm really looking for in a concealer is a concealer that gives me full coverage without looking dry, heavy, cakey underneath my eyes. I want it to look luminous and hydrated under there, but full coverage so that it's covering all of the darkness. I'm also looking for a concealer that will conceal discoloration on the rest of my face as well, as I do have some acne scarring and some pimples every now and again that I'm looking to cover. A ton of people swear by this Too Faced concealer, so I wanted to give it a try and see how I liked it. A lot of people do first impressions on products, and I really don't find those videos they're fun to watch, but they're not very useful because you really need to work with the product before you can figure out whether you really truly like it or not. If you use a concealer with a beauty blender, your finger, a brush, if you try a lot of the product, a little bit of the product, whether you set it with a powder or you don't, all of these things are going to make the product a little bit different. And so I wanted to film my first impression of the concealer, and during my first impression I applied the concealer in the way that I would normally apply concealer, and then I wanted to try the product out for a little while and try using it in a bunch of different ways and figure out the way that I feel like it's the best way to use the product. So if you're just here for a yes or no answer on whether or not I think you should go ahead and pick up this concealer, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right now the answer is yes. But if you want to know why this product gets a yes from me and the best way to use the product, then just keep on watching and we're gonna go through all of that together. Too Faced does make some pretty bold claims when it comes to this concealer. This is from the Too Faced website. The concealer is fully loaded with pigments that provide maximum coverage with an undetectable finish for a look so flawless they'll think you were born this way. They say the product is oil-free and non-comedogenic, can be used to conceal, contour, highlight, and retouch. They say it's weightless and hydrating, so skin is never dry or cakey. It's long-wearing and lasts up to 12 hours and has a photo-friendly finish, which means no flashback. Let's get straight into the first impression and I'll see you guys afterwards for my final thoughts. Okay, so I got this in the shade Vanilla. It says it's infused with coconut water, which aids in delicately replenishing skin's moisture levels. It has Alpine Rose, which helps empower skin's health and resilience. And there's hyaluronic acid, which gives a smoother, more youthful appearance to the skin. So it says it's hydrating, long-wearing, photo-friendly, and non-comedogenic. You can cover, contour, highlight, and retouch with this super perfecting natural finish concealer / makeup hybrid. The ultimate multi-use formula for a modern and hydrated photo-ready complexion. Fully loaded pigments provide maximum coverage with an undetectable finish for a look so flawless they'll think you were born this way. So I'm going to be using this to conceal underneath my eyes. I'm going to use it to try and conceal some of these little pimples that I have going on my forehead, and I do have a few on my chin as well. I got this in a shade that should hopefully be a little bit lighter than my foundation. So for today's application, I am going to apply the product with a beauty blender. So I'm just going to take what's on the brush here and go right in. So I thought dipping it in once would give me enough concealer for both eyes, but a lot of it came off right away on the first eye. I've had a lot of problems finding a concealer. I mean, not problems, but I've just been looking for the perfect one. The last 3 that I used were the Magic Away concealer from Charlotte Tilbury, which is a full coverage matte concealer. I used the Retoucher concealer from Charlotte Tilbury, which is a light to medium coverage with a dewy finish concealer. And then I was also using the Maybelline Fit Me. So I'd say the Maybelline was the worst out of the 3, to be honest. The Charlotte Tilbury concealers are both really nice, but I'm just looking for something a little bit more. I just want a little bit more coverage. I want it to look a little bit less matte. I'm gonna go ahead with my beauty blender and just start blending that in. So I chose this color because it does have a little bit of a yellow undertone, but it wasn't too yellow. So there was a shade right next to it on the display that was extremely yellow. When I first put this one on, I thought, oh no, that's gonna be too yellow and too bright. But then when I looked at the one next to it, I realized this one was sort of more of a neutral yellow undertone. So it's blending out really easily. Even though I was talking and kind of let it sit there for a second and dry down a bit, it still blended out really nicely. Okay, so far that's looking really good. It's looking really smooth. It's done quite a nice job of covering the darkness underneath my eyes. Actually a great job. And it covered up those little pimples pretty dang good as well. If I do end up loving this concealer, I might end up buying it in a darker shade too, something that's more close to my actual skin tone so that I can use it for spot correcting as well. We'll have to see how I like it. But so far I'm really loving the finish. So I do always set my concealer. I find all concealers crease like instantly on me unless I set them with powder. So I am gonna go ahead with a loose powder today. I'm using my Charlotte Tilbury Magic Genius powder to set my makeup. So this side is set and this side is not. So I'm gonna be shooting some photos and some video today. So I'm going for quite a full coverage, sort of flawless look to my skin. So I feel like that first application covered up the pimples on my chin really well, but I just wanna add a little bit more right up here and just kind of pat that in with my fingers so that I'm getting most of the pigmentation in the spot where I want it instead of spreading it out all over. This bottle is gigantic. There is 15 ml in here. This is by far the largest concealer with the most product inside at Sephora, like by far. It's like double or triple most of the other concealers that they have there. This was 38 Canadian dollars, which I'd say is a pretty average price for a concealer in Sephora. The Charlotte Tilbury concealer is $38 as well, and you get way less concealer in there. So this is really good value for your money. I feel like this will last me forever. Okay, so here's how we're looking in natural lighting. And I want to go look in the bigger mirror in the bathroom as well. Okay, so under the artificial lighting, it is looking a little bit cakey. So maybe I used a little bit too much product, but like I said, I'm going for like a super full coverage look today because I'm going to be doing some filming. So I'm not super mad about that, but it is looking a tiny bit cakey. So I'm going to continue to see how the concealer wears throughout the day. I'm going to continue to use this concealer for the rest of the week. I'm going to try applying it with different tools. I'm going to try applying it with different amounts, using it with different foundations. I am wearing it with my Charlotte Tilbury Magic Foundation right now. So Magic Foundation is a medium to full coverage foundation with a demi matte finish. So I feel like the matte sort of full coverage finish of the concealer works really nicely with the more fuller coverage foundation. I'm curious to see how it will look with my Light Wonder foundation, which is a light to medium coverage with a dewy finish. I will give sort of an update and a wrap up at the end of the week and let you guys know what I think of the concealer and if I think you should pick it up. But yeah, so far on the first impression, I think it's looking really good. It's really giving me the coverage that I've been looking for from a concealer. We'll just see how it wears throughout the rest of the day. I just wanted to show you guys quickly. I've had the makeup on for probably about an hour. I just wanted to show you how it looks with all the rest of my makeup on. So I do have a little bit of creasing happening right underneath this eye right here. I do honestly think I probably used a little bit too much, so we'll see how that goes throughout the rest of the week. But besides that, I really like the look of it. It's definitely like really nice and full coverage. Okay guys, so it's 8:30. I've had my makeup on for 8 hours. So I feel like it still looks really good, especially considering how my concealer can sometimes look at this time. I think it held up really well. And I use it as primer for my eyeshadow, and I feel like my eyeshadow looks like really nice and very pigmented today, and it was really easy to blend out. And I got my eyeliner on there really easily, so yeah, so far I'm really liking it. Okay guys, so today is my second day wearing the Too Faced Born This Way concealer. Will and I are just about to head out for dinner, and I did not feel like putting on any makeup, so I thought it was the perfect chance to try it with a really light makeup look. So I definitely used a lot less of the concealer today. Yesterday I did one full dip into the jar for underneath each eye, and today I used just one dip for both eyes and my forehead. I did find that I needed a little bit more concealer on my little breakout right here again, but let's go see how it looks in the artificial lighting. I'm even wearing foundation right now. I'm just wearing my Charlotte Tilbury Unisex Healthy Glow. It's a tinted moisturizer. So I did that with a little bit of bronzer, highlighter, brow gel, and then the concealer, and that's all the makeup that I have on my face right now. Again, Again, I'm really liking how full coverage it is. So even though I used a lot less product, I'm seeing that it's really, really nice and full coverage. I'm getting all the coverage where I need it through the center of my face. Oh, I did use it on my scarring as well. I do have some acne scarring on the lower parts of my cheeks, so I did use it there as well. And yeah, I totally even forgot about that because it looks so nice there. I'm really enjoying the way that it's looking right now with less makeup. I would say, however, that it does look like I'm wearing makeup. So if you're looking for something that's gonna look super natural and really like skin, I don't think this is gonna be the concealer for you. But if you are looking for a concealer that works with a really small amount of makeup, that's gonna give you the coverage that you need in the areas where you need it, I think this is gonna be more of a product for you. Okay, so I've now been using this concealer for 2 weeks exactly. It was 2 weeks ago that I filmed my first impression. Like I said in the intro, this concealer gets a yes from me. The Too Faced Born This Way multi-use sculpting concealer gives me the coverage of my dreams. Like, that's a little bit dramatic, but it's true. I would say the coverage is comparable to Tarte Shape Tape, which is another concealer that I've tried before that is super popular. But I really found the Tarte Shape Tape concealer to be way too cakey. I used that concealer for months before I ended up giving it away. I could not get it to work for me. Like I mentioned in my first impression, this concealer does get cakey really easily. A little bit goes a long way. If you use too much concealer or you set it with too much powder, it's going to emphasize any kind of texture that you have underneath your eyes. It's going to emphasize any kind of texture that you have on the rest of your face, and it's gonna look cakey. So the two things that I did in order to avoid cakiness with this concealer is, number one, priming the area. So I either made sure to really moisturize really well in that area, really made sure that I got that area nice and hydrated before I went in with the concealer. And another way that I've done that is by using a primer. So if you have a hydrating primer at home, just make sure you're using that in the areas where you're going to be putting the concealer down. I was using my Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter, which gives a really beautiful glow. It's nice and dewy and hydrating. It really reflects light out of the area. So I was using it over top of that, and that was helping to prevent the cakiness as well. You also just need a really small amount. So the applicator is a doe foot applicator in the shape of a diamond. And I figured out the best way to make sure that I wasn't using too much product was to only use one dip into the jar for both eyes and my entire face. So I'll dip once into the jar, do each eye, and then conceal any other areas that need concealer. And then that way I'm not using too much product. The product still blends out really nicely and gives me the coverage that I'm looking for, but it does not feel too heavy or cakey or emphasize too much texture. One final thing that I figured out that will help to prevent the concealer from looking cakey is by using the tiniest little bit of powder. So the powder that I have with me right now is my Charlotte Tilbury Genius Magic Powder. It's a loose powder. And normally when I'm setting my concealer, I'll dip my brush into the powder, get a bunch of it on my brush, and pat it in on top of my concealer, and then dust away any excess. And that's how I've been applying powder on my under eyes for years now. That's what has worked with all of the concealers that I've had in the past. This concealer is the opposite of that. I dip my brush into a little bit of powder, I dust off as much excess as I can, and I really lightly go over top of the areas where I place concealer. And that way I'm setting the concealer without putting too much powder, which helps to prevent the concealer from looking cakey. The reason that I'm using any powder at all is that I did find that this powder does need to be set. So I did say in my first impression that I always set my concealer. I did try wearing this concealer without setting it. I can put in a clip here of me before I went ahead and put powder on it. I was getting ready to go out one night and I thought, because I'm not going to be wearing the concealer all day, we're just going out for dinner, I just won't set it and I'll see how it looks at the end of dinner. And before we even made it out of the house, I had to put powder. I just don't think concealer works in your under eye area without setting with a little bit of powder to help keep it in place. So I do use a tiny, tiny little bit of powder under there, and that helps to set the concealer and keep it in place, but prevents it from looking too cakey. I did find that this concealer works really well with either a full face of makeup or a really light makeup look. So today I'm wearing sort of a medium face of makeup. I'm wearing my Hydrating Charlotte Tilbury Light Wonder Foundation, which is a light coverage foundation with a dewy finish. I've tried this with my medium to full coverage Magic Foundation like I did in my first impression actually. And I've tried this with no other makeup, just only concealer and powder on my face as well. And I did find the concealer worked in all of those instances. So whether you're looking for a product that's gonna go with a full glam makeup look or an everyday makeup look, this concealer will work for you. However, it is obvious that you're wearing concealer because of how full coverage it is. Nobody has perfect skin that has no darkness under the eyes, no redness around the nose or mouth. So because the concealer is so full coverage, if you're wearing no other makeup besides the concealer, it's going to be obvious that you're wearing makeup. So whether or not you're okay with that is going to determine whether or not you want to pick up this concealer for yourself. One of the claims for the concealer is that it is long wearing, and I'm definitely going to have to agree with that. Unfortunately for me, vanilla is not my color. So, I mean, it works and I'm going to continue to use it because I bought it and I hate returning things and I can get it to work. And I think actually the color might be a little bit better for me when I have less of a tan. So I do have quite a bit of color right now, and when I get more color, I definitely become more of an olive undertone as opposed to a yellow undertone. When I'm more fair, I'm definitely super yellow. The range of colors that they have is so big, which is so great, that I feel like I could probably find something a little bit closer. So if I do repurchase this, I'll probably go for something a little bit more neutral, I think. The best way that I found to apply the concealer is with a damp beauty sponge. I feel the best way to apply concealers in general is with a beauty sponge. I do use a beauty blender at the moment, but any damp beauty sponge will work. It just does a really beautiful job of blending the product out really nicely and making sure it's not building up too much in one area. So basically, the way to get the most out of this concealer is, number one, don't use too much product, whether that be concealer or powder to set it with. Number two, blend the product out with a beauty blender. And number three, make sure you're prepping the skin properly before you put concealer on top. So whether that be an eye cream, a face moisturizer, or a hydrating or nourishing primer, anything that's gonna really nourish and hydrate that area before you put the concealer on top will work. So that's going to be it for today's review. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. The Too Faced Born This Way Multi-Use Sculpting Concealer is definitely on my recommended list. Go check it out if you're looking for a new concealer and you want something really nice and full coverage that's not going to let you down. It's going to last for the whole day. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It's going to help more people to see it too, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. Bye guys.